The Legions of Athena. Chapter 21. For a second time that day, Maximus awoke not knowing where he was. His head was throbbing, and it took a moment for his eyes to adjust. He did not know the room he was in, but judging from the metallic walls, he figured he was back in the owl's nest. There was not much in the room other than the bed he was on and a table near it. There was a tiny window to his left, too high above him to look outside, and a single door facing him. He sat up in hopes of getting to his door, only to find that he could not leave his bed. His hands had been handcuffed to the railings of the bed. A tingle of fear ran down his neck as he searched for his sword. But it was nowhere to be found. They had confiscated the knife he kept strapped in his boots as well. Max tried to free himself from his shackles to no avail, but the commotion he made gathered a response as the door slid open. An Athenian guard stood at the door, but he did not step inside. Instead, the guard let the door close just as quickly as it had opened. "Hey!" Maximus shouted after him, but the door remained shut. Maximus tried to recall all that had happened before he ended up here. He remembered the tournament, but his memories were strange. The fight in the arena was split into two parts in his head. He remembered everything as he should, till the moment when Theo had plunged his electric batons into his neck. He ran his hands across his neck, expecting to find the marks they had left, but there was nothing there. In fact, for someone who had just fought a fierce battle, he felt fine. He could not feel any aches or pains. But for the first time in months, he felt worn out. Then he remembered the second half of the battle. Maximus remembered everything he had done, but the memories did not feel like his own. He felt as though he was watching the fight from afar, or somewhere deep in his own head, as his body moved on autopilot, destroying the tyros around him. He knew he was doing it, but somehow he felt like a spectator in his own body. He did not have time to ponder deeply on this as the door slid open again, and Achilles and Odysseus stepped into the room. Whatever relief he felt at seeing them quickly disappeared. On seeing the expression Achilles had, he had never seen his mentor so furious, and worse still, the anger seemed to be directed at him. He marched straight up to Maximus, threw something on his lap, and said, "Explain." Maximus looked down to see the object he had just been tossed was a pocket watch, but the watch itself had a shattered glass and red stains on it. It took a moment for him to recognize the watch, but he knew it. It was the same pocket watch Achilles had bought a while back in Vulcan, the one he had given to Daedalus. Maximus looked back at his teacher dumbstruck, not knowing what he expected him to say. But luckily Odysseus stepped in and put a hand on his old comrade's shoulder, signaling him to step back. "Maximus, we found Daedalus's body in one of his labs," Odysseus said coldly, not betraying any sort of emotion. "The cause of death being a stab to the upper torso from a blade. From the stab wound, it can be deduced that the size of the blade is roughly that of your own." It took a moment for Max to register what Odysseus had meant by that. When it did, he felt as if all his insides had turned. You think I killed him?" Maximus said, shocked. He couldn't believe this. He wanted to puke in disgust. How could they even think that? He looked at Achilles, now pacing in anger, which made him feel worse. "No one is saying that, but look at the situation we are in," Odysseus said, in a rather strained calmness. "An ex-soldier from the country we are at war with simply proclaims to the entire nation that Daedalus, Athena's most trusted advisor, is dead. Furthermore, he does so after defeating most of the tyros and displaying powers unknown to even his teacher. Half the country was shouting for your execution. I would suggest you to be cautious with your response." Maximus was at a loss of words. His situation did seem suspicious. "I didn't kill him," was all he could murmur. "Then who did?" Odysseus pressed on. "A swordsman. From the way he talked, he seemed to have known Daedalus personally. He was strong, but not a god, or at least not any god I have ever heard of. He said his name was Perseus, I think," Maximus finished. Odysseus looked at him with shrewd eyes, unsure on whether to believe him. But it was the way Achilles responded that caught him off guard. His anger was still there, but it had toned down. His eyes had widened in surprise. "Boy, this Perseus, what did he look like?" he asked. "Well, he was tall." Max recollected trying to call to mind everything he could. "With brownish hair. He used a sword, but on his left arm he also had this golden gauntlet, and he had bright green eyes," Achilles completed. Maximus nodded, unsure of how his mentor knew this. Achilles, on the other hand, looked as though he had just been punched in the gut. Odysseus looked at his old friend for explanation, but just then the door slid open again and Elisha stepped in. "General, the goddess has ordered that she wishes to speak with the prisoner, personally," she said, all the while being careful to not even glance in Max's direction. "The goddess also wishes for both of you to be present as well." Odysseus let out a low sigh and said, "As she commands. Elisha, bring Maximus up to the throne room while we go ahead to update her on what we have learned." With these words, the two heroes left the room without so much as a word. Max wished Achilles had said more, that he believed his words or anything. But there was no luck. He was stuck alone in the room with Elisha, who still refused to look at him. Once they were on their way to the throne room and farther away from where Max was being held, Odysseus asked, "Do you believe him?" Achilles nodded. "That bit about Perseus, how did you know? Have you met him on your travels?" he asked next. Achilles took a moment to respond. "Not in my travels, no." "Then Yesterday at the pub. I think I may have run into him, replied Achilles. What? Odysseus exclaimed, shocked. I cannot be certain. I met a man yesterday who fits this description, but it's what he talked about that makes me suspicious, recalled Achilles. Which is what exactly? Odysseus probed. Who would win in a fight between Perseus and Achilles? Perhaps he knew who I was. Perhaps he was toying with me, said Achilles. Perhaps it was mere coincidence, hoped Odysseus. You and I have been alive for too long to still believe in coincidences, remarked his friend. Odysseus shook his head in disbelief. The situation grows more harrowing by the second. But what of the power the boy displayed? Did you truly not know what he was capable of? Achilles did not answer, but Odysseus did not let it rest. He pulled at his best friend's shoulder and repeated, Tell me. I knew there was more to Maximus, but I wasn't sure what, he said. Odysseus looked grim. My suspicions were more about his blade rather than the boy, Achilles began. It was easy to see the blade was not ordinary. It had even given him visions of the gods themselves. Suffice to say I was curious, which is why you agreed to train the boy. Odysseus deduced and Achilles nodded. While training him, I learned that the blade was no ordinary energy weapon. I tried to wield it myself to no real results, Achilles said. So only he can activate it, Odysseus said. So what we saw in the arena, you think it is the blade's doing? You think the weapon is possessed? Achilles shook his head. I thought so at first, but during Max's training, I realized that he himself was skilled, too skilled for a 17-year-old. But what was even more peculiar was the speed at which he advanced. His body was well attuned for battle, unnaturally well, he said. So a boy with unnatural gifts comes across a blade only he can wield. What do you call that, a coincidence? Odysseus asked. They had just reached the entrance to Athena's throne room, but before entering it, Achilles turned to his friend and said, As I said, I don't believe in coincidences. Maximus was outside the throne room now. He was told to wait, and he had no doubt he was the topic of discussion inside. So he stood there silently, with only Elisha for company. The tyro had not looked him in the eye even once, and even now she found the wall more interesting than him. Then, out of nowhere, she blurted, Who did it? Maximus jerked his head to look at her, but her eyes were still fixed to the wall. What? You don't think it was me? I know it wasn't you, she answered. Why? Maximus asked suspiciously. Out on the arena, you could have ended us all, but you didn't, though you despised us. There's no way you could have killed Daedalus. I doubt you could kill anyone, she surmised. Max was furious at this. I used to be a soldier of Mars. I've been in battles before, he insisted. Elisha spoke. That maybe, but you never took a life, did you? Probably stationed in one of the outposts being a greenhorn. Never any major action there. Maximus didn't know what she was getting at, but she was right. He had been in battles and been in his fair share of fights, even seen people die in front of him. But he had never actually taken a life. He was posted away from the front lines. Most of his duties involved scouting and chasing bandits. I'm right, aren't I? Elisha said. But you will soon. Whatever you are, or whatever it is that you turned into in the Colosseum, something like that was born to kill. Elisha didn't say anything after that, and Maximus didn't know how to respond. It was easy to see that she was afraid of him. Considering how she had treated him before, he should have been happy, but instead it made him feel sick. The doors to the throne room finally opened. Maximus entered alone. The room itself was immense and circular. Everything from the walls to the floor was made of glistening steel. The room itself was decorated with marble sculptures, and above a glass roof revealed gray clouds seeping into the clear blue sky. Maximus walked towards the end of the hall. There were a host of people awaiting him. Achilles and Odysseus stood facing the throne, along with the announcer Dalton and a lady he did not know. The lady was holding a long cylinder in her hand as well. The goddess herself was seated on her throne with her champion by her side. Theseus frowned upon seeing him, which was enough to send a chill down Max's spine. Athena, on the other hand, gave him an inquisitive look, her sharp eyes studying him meticulously. As he approached them, it was Dalton who spoke first. Why is he not in chains? A murderer like him must not be allowed near the goddess unbound, he said. His crime has not been proven, Dalton, and he is innocent until proven guilty, Athena said firmly. And this child is no threat to me, are you, boy? The way Athena said those words, it wasn't really a question, but more of a statement. But Maximus knew he should answer, No, my goddess, and it wasn't me who killed Daedalus. It was a man named Perseus. Yes, Achilles has already informed us of your cleverly spun lies. Dalton began, but Athena silenced him. You must understand why this story is hard to believe, Athena explained. I know Perseus, and he bears no ill will to me, or to Daedalus for that matter. We were even allies at a point in time, but the same cannot be said for you, Martian. You were one of Ares' men not too long ago. I cannot vouch for you. But I can, said Achilles. If Maximus wanted Daedalus dead, he had 100 chances before. He did not do this. For the first time since entering the room, Maximus felt relieved. If nothing else, Achilles believed him, but he knew that was not enough. This Perseus, he was working for someone else. He kept talking about his boss. Also, he seemed genuinely sorry about what he had to do. A silence followed these words. Somehow Maximus thought the goddess believed him. Even worse, he felt that the goddess knew who Perseus's master was. Athena turned to the woman and said, "Pallas, has the blade been examined?" "Thoroughly, my queen. It seems the boy speaks the truth," Lady Pallas confirmed. "There are no traces of our deceased advisor's blood anywhere on it." She went ahead to open the long cylindrical container to reveal Max's sword. "Then return it to the boy." "I trust him as well," Athena said. "Return to your chambers, Maximus. You are not to leave your tower under any circumstance. We will summon you if further questioning is required." Maximus finally felt like he could breathe again. He gave a bow and decided to quickly leave the throne room before further complications arose. He glanced over at Achilles, but he wouldn't meet his eyes. He walked fast towards the automatic doors, but as the doors slid open, he found his path blocked by a tall, slender figure. "Madam Hex," Max said, startled at seeing her. The tall woman looked down at him with the unsettling white mask of hers. She had her polecat with her as well, who hissed on seeing Maximus. Madam Hex stepped into the room before turning to Maximus and saying, "Come," and began walking towards the throne. Maximus was unsure about what was going on, but he followed her to the throne. Once there, she said, "Athena, I wish to speak to you and the boy alone." "How rude," Dalton started. "Madam Hex, we are having a most important—" "Get out, all of you," Athena said, cutting Dalton off abruptly. Not even Odysseus or Achilles questioned her words. They all left immediately, leaving Maximus alone in the room with the goddess of war and the mysterious Madam Hex. Once the doors were shut behind them, Athena spoke. "Why have you come?" "The inventor's death is a focal point," Madam Hex said in her echoing voice. "Change is inevitable." Maximus felt as though the madam had just read something from a fortune cookie, but Athena seemed to have understood. That much is obvious. He has been hunting Daedalus for decades. With his death, his search is at a dead end. "I have no doubt his rage shall be aimed at me now for protecting him for so long," Athena said. "But make no mistake, I will not go to my grave quietly." "Perhaps there is hope," Madam Hex said, turning to Max, "for he has arrived, or rather survived." Now Maximus and Athena seemed to be on the same page because both of them were looking at the madam in confusion. "You speak as though the boy is a hero of prophecy, born in time of need," Athena said. "Perhaps not born, but rather made," divulged Madam Hex. More gibberish, Maximus thought, but Athena's eyes widened. She looked at Maximus like his existence was an impossibility. "Boy, how old are you?" she asked. "Almost 18, Maximus said, uncertain what that had to do with anything. Madam Hex came closer to him with her polecat still in her arms. She let the creature sniff Max before pulling it back again. Then she said, "Well over 3 centuries. I felt his aura to be strange when I met him, but I only realized what he was after his performance in the arena," she continued, stroking her pet. "And Gale agrees with me." Maximus no longer even pretended to understand the conversation. The crazy purple-robed lady had just said he was over 300 years old, and then said that her polecat agreed with her. Luckily, Athena voiced aloud what he was thinking. "But that's impossible." "Improbable, perhaps, but certainly not impossible," Madam Hex corrected. "There are no impossibilities when we immortals are involved." Great, more folksy wisdom, Maximus thought to himself. He had also begun wondering if Athena was just entertaining the ideas of the deranged magician. Perhaps Madam Hex was a mad person whom the goddess had taken a fancy to. Perhaps she was her crazy aunt or something. Wait, did gods have aunts for that matter? But Athena seemed shaken at the woman's words. "No, I had seen the creations near completion. They were all fully grown, battle-ready, not some adolescent simpleton." That brought back Maximus's attention. He did not appreciate being called a simpleton, but he wasn't about to protest that to a goddess. "Yes, all but one," Madam Hex said eerily. Athena sat up in disbelief to stare at Maximus and murmured, "The child." Maximus was really starting to freak out from the conversation. They seemed to be talking about him as if he was someone or something else, and goddess or not, he wanted an explanation. But just as he was mustering up the courage to ask, crash! The large crash had come from above them as something burst through the glass ceiling and fell to the floor of the throne room. The bloody mess of bronze and steel got up and revealed itself to be Icarus. It was clear that Icarus had fought with more than just the ceiling by just looking at him. His bronze armor was battered, and one of his mechanical wings was broken. Blood and oil oozed out of him. But the commander of the 8th Legion still limped forward to Athena and said, "Commander Leos is dead. The vanguard has been defeated. Ares is at our doorstep." This has been a chapter from Book 2 of the new World Odyssey Series, The Legions of Athena. Links to the books in the bio. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next chapter.